Okay, this video is dividing fractions and mixed numbers quiz review from pages 101, 102 selected problems. On page 101, we'll do numbers 5 through 11. On page 102, we'll do pages 4 through 7. So I'll move my page up so I can show my problems here. And these first three problems, numbers 5 through 7, are dividing fractions. Now, we've been using lately a little checklist here, and this checklist I've called dividing mixed numbers. So the first thing to recognize is that all of these steps are the same except for number 1. If you read number 1 from the checklist, it says convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. If you try to apply that to number 5, it doesn't make sense because number 5 just has two regular fractions. So the first thing to recognize is that when you have just regular division of fractions, you start on step number 2 of your checklist, which is multiply the reciprocal. I'll go ahead and show what I mean by that. So number 5 reads 1/3 divided by 7/9. And the first step on your checklist is to multiply the reciprocal of the second term. So instead of a division problem, I write multiplication, and instead of 7 over 9, I write the reciprocal, which is 9 over 7. Now I just have a multiplication problem where I can go ahead and check number 3 says, check for common factors, simplify if possible. 3 and 9 share a factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. Now I multiply my numerators, which is 3, and my denominators, which is 7. It's a regular fraction which doesn't simplify, so that is the best answer. So let's go ahead and go to number 6. 6 is 1/3 divided by 5/8. The first step is to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of 5 over 8 is 8 over 5. The second step is to check for anything that simplify. 1 and 5 don't share any factors other than 1, neither do 3 and 8. So the next step is to multiply your numerators. 1 times 8 is 8. Your denominators, 3 times 5 is 15. That is a regular fraction which doesn't simplify, so that is the best answer. Number 7 is a word problem. Lori cuts a board that is 3/4 yards long into pieces that are 3/8 yards long. How many pieces does she cut? So your total length that you start with is 3/4 of a yard, and you're going to divide that into pieces that are 3/8 of a yard. So that is 3/4 divided by 3/8. Again, going through your checklist, the first thing is to rewrite this as a multiplication of the reciprocal of the second term. And so 3/8 gets rewritten as its reciprocal of 8 over 3. The next step is to check for things that simplify. 3 and 3 share a factor of 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 4 and 8 share a factor of 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. And 8 divided by 4 is 2. And 1 times 2 is 2. And 1 times 1 is 1. 2 over 1 is the same as 2 wholes. And just double check what the unit was. It says how many pieces does she cut. So the answer to this one is she cuts 2 pieces. It's always best to answer a word problem with at least one word, the unit. Alright, let's go ahead and go to our next set of problems. There's my checklist again. I'll go ahead and move it down. So this set of problems on 8 through 11 are dividing mixed numbers. So this is where that checklist can come in really handy. And the main difference between these next 4 problems and what we just did is this first step right here. The first step says to convert the mixed numbers into improper fractions. That's a really important first step. So I'm going to leave my checklist right here. I'm going to move my whiteboard up, and I'm going to show all my work. So, tiny bit more complicated, but not too bad. Number 8 was 3 1/3 divided by 2/3. So if you go through your checklist, the first step says to convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. There's only one mixed number here, the one on the left. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So this one gets rewritten as 10/3. And the second fraction is a regular fraction, so it just stays the same until I go to my next step, which is multiply the reciprocal. So now I can multiply by the reciprocal of 2 over 3, which is 3 over 2. Third step is to check for common factors and simplify if possible. We did this one earlier. 3 and 3 simplify to 1 and 1. 10 and 2 share a factor of 2. 2 goes into itself once, and 2 goes into 10 5 times. You end up with 5 times 1 over 1 times 1. And that's the same as 5 wholes. So the best answer to number 8 is just 5. I'm going to go ahead and do number 10 right now, and then we'll go to the odds in just a minute. I'm going to erase my whiteboard so I can show my work for number 10. I've got 4 1/4 divided by 4 1/2. So going through my checklist, the first step is to convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. 4 1/4 is the same as 17/4. And that's going to be divided by 4 1/2, as 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9/2. And then the next step is to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'll multiply, and I'll rewrite this as 2 over 9. Now I'm supposed to check for things that simplify. 2 and 4 share a factor of 2. 2 goes into itself once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. Now you have 17 times 1 is your numerator, and 2 times 9 is your denominator. The final answer is 17/18. And what I want to do is actually check my checklist and make sure I'm getting everything right. Step number 5 says, if your quotient is improper, rename it as a mixed number. Well, 17/18 is not improper. That's a regular fraction, so there's no reason to rename it. So that is the correct answer. All right, so let's go ahead now and check out the odds. We'll check out 9 and 11. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to clear all my annotations, move this over. I've got now 9 and 11 within view, and I still have my checklist here that I can use, and I still got my whiteboard that I can show my work. So we're on number 9 here. 1 7/8 divided by 2 2/5. Step number 1, convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. 1 times 8 is 8, plus 7 is 15, that's 15/8. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12, 12/5. Step number 2 is to multiply by the reciprocal of the second term, so that changes to 5 over 12. Step number 3 is to check for common factors. 5 and 8 don't share a factor, but 15 and 12 do. I want to remind you that simplifying doesn't mean that one of the terms goes into the other term. It means that they can each be divided by the same number. And 15 and 12 can both be divided by 3. 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 12 divided by 3 is 4. Now I have my numerators are 5 times 5, that's 25. And that turned out kind of messy. 5 times 5 is 25, and 8 times 4 is 32. Step number 5, if your quotient is improper, rename it as a mixed number. Once again, this is another example of sometimes we get a regular fraction as an answer. And again, my pen's kind of acting up. 25 over 32. It is not an improper fraction, so we don't have to convert it back to a mixed number. It's just fine as is. Okay, number 11. Eight and 1/3 divided by 4 and 2/7. 8 and 1/3 is 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25. That's equivalent to 25/3. 4 and 2/7 is equivalent to 4 times 7 is 28, plus 2 is 30, 37. Second step is to multiply the reciprocal, which is 7/30. The third step is to check for things that simplify. 25 and 30 share a factor of 5. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 3 and 7 don't share a factor. Number 4, multiply your numerators and your denominators. 5 times 7 is 35 over 3 times 6 is 18. 35/18 is an improper fraction, so number 5 applies here. If your quotient is improper, rename it as a mixed number. 18 goes into 35 once. I want to point out to you that it's almost twice. If you did 18 times 2, you'd get 36. So I'm only 1/18 away from 2 wholes, which actually really helps me figure out my numerator. The denominator remains 18, and I just pointed out that I'm only 1/18 away from 2 wholes, which means the remainder is 17/18. The answer number 11 is 1 17/18. Let's move ahead to the word problems. And I meant the multiple choice problems. We have moved over to page 102. We're on number 4. The first question is, which of these is the same as 3/5 divided by 4/7? I want to point out something to you. This is a division problem. And look at your 4 choices. Your 4 choices are division, division, multiplication, multiplication. Well, if you go back to your checklist, let me bring it into view. If you go back to your checklist, step number 2 says multiply the reciprocal of the second term. So which of these 4 choices here shows that we're changing to multiplication and that we're changing the second term into its reciprocal? That's D. The correct answer, number 4, is D. Let's move into view number 5. Number 5 is Andy has 6 2/3 quarts of juice. How many 2/3 cup serving can he pour? Take the total amount of juice that you have, 6 2/3, and you divide that by the serving size, which is 2/3. And your checklist can help you on this one. First step is to convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20. That's 20 thirds. Divided by 2 thirds. The second step is to multiply the reciprocal of the second term. The next step is to check for common factors. 3 and 3 share a factor of 3. They simplify to 1 over 1. And 2 and 20 share a factor. 2 goes into 20 10 times. 2 goes into itself once. You can see your numerators are 10 times 1, and your denominators are 1 times 1. 10 over 1 is the same as 10 whole. The answer is D. Number 6. What is the reciprocal of 3 and 3/7? This is kind of an easy problem that gets commonly missed, and so we kind of want to take a look at the whole thing. The first thing you should notice about 3 and 3/7 is that it's a mixed number. And if you, like, let's say you just use your checklist right here. I'm going to cover up my answer choices. The checklist says convert mixed numbers to improper fractions. So right off the bat, you should think 3 times 7 is 21, plus 3 is 24. You should automatically think that this is 24 over 7. Now, a lot of kids want to then go select D, because D is one of the options. But don't forget what reciprocal means. Reciprocal means that after you convert it to a mixed number, you then invert the numerator and the denominator. So the answer to this question is actually A, 7/24. So again, 3 and 3/7 is equal to 24/7. But the question asks you about the reciprocal. The reciprocal is 24/7 is 7/24. All right, last one, number 7. And this one's pretty complicated, but they did actually give you some compatible numbers that compatible numbers that simplify pretty well. This is one of the area problems, and we've done quite a few of these. So just a reminder that if you have an area problem, if you're given the area, to find the missing dimension, you divide the area, which in this case is 103 and 1/8, divided by the given dimension, which in this case is 12.5. And that looks pretty complicated, but I'll show you as I go through it how the numbers work pretty well together. 103 times 8, that's kind of like 100 times 8. That would be 800. 3 times 8 is 24, so if I say that together, it'd be 824, plus 1 is 825. And that's eighths. And the second fraction is 12 times 2 is 24, plus 1 is 25, 25 halves. So that's the first step. If you're going by your checklist here, I'll bring it into view. If you're going by your checklist, you have converted the mixed numbers to improper fractions. The second step is to multiply by the reciprocal of the second term, which is 2/25. The third step is to check for things that simplify. 2 and 8 share a factor of 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. And a lot of kids would look at this and be suspicious that does 25 go into 825? And it does. 25 goes into anything that ends in 25. So I'll try to explain how you can do this mentally. 25 goes into itself just once. How many times does 25 go into 825? Well, how many times does 25 just go into 100? Well, that's 4. 25, 50, 75, 100. So if you think about it, there's 4 25s in every 100, and I've got 8 hundreds. So I can just do 8 times 4 is 32. And there's an additional 25. How many times does 25 go into 25? Just once. So if 25 goes into 832 times, and one more 25, that makes 33. So in other words, 825 divided by 25 is 33. And so my numerators now are 33 times 1, which is 33. And my denominators are 4 times 1, which is 4. So now I have 33/4. 4 goes into 33 8 times with 1 left over. The answer is 8 1/4. It's B.